Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Dan. This morning I have with me Mr. Gerard Fernando. He's a chartered engineer by profession with a BSc in engineering from University of Moratuwa, and he presently holding the position of Additional General Manager of Corporate Services at National Water Supply and Drainage Board, or what we call the Water Board. He accounts for over 35 years of experience in water sector and have served in various regions in the country in many capacities prior to promoting to the present position. Good morning, Mr. Fernando, and welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, now today we are going to discuss about Sri Lanka's national water supply. And turning to our discussion, I would like to ask you why the demand for pipe-borne water is ever increasing and why people want to get water from pipe supplies other than from their normal domestic services, because we know in the past that people have been taking the water from their own lands or from rivers and lakes. But why is there an increase in demand for pipe-borne water?
Yeah, actually, if we think about the older civilization, we understand that most of the civilization has begun very close proximity to the water bodies. Right, because for thousands of years, water was a very basic need of the people. Even now, today, we know that without water, we can live only few days. So even in Sri Lanka, earliest civilization has been began very close proximity to the rivers. If you are taking some coastal areas, all major cities are located close to a river. But those days, people's expectation was very less, and the population was also very less, and the water bodies was full of very clear water. They can collect water and get water for their day-to-day needs from any source. But with the industrialization as well as the increasing population and urbanization, people tend to migrate to the cities, urban areas. With that, there was a high demand for water, and like older days, they cannot go for the natural sources for the collection of water for day-to-day purposes. So because of that thing, there was a need to provide pipe-borne water to the people. So that's why this pipe-borne water has begun in the world. In Sri Lanka also, we had to start pipe-borne water about 150 years back.
Now, the supply of water is a national duty in this country. Unlike in some other countries, we know that it's a privatized area. But here, understanding the national need, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board plays a key role in providing these pipe-borne water facilities in the country. Will you be able to tell something about the history of the water board and how it has been evolved during the last few decades?
Yeah, actually, not only in Sri Lanka, even in other countries, the major public services were provided by the local authorities. That was the practice adopted during the last 200 or 300 years. So even in Europe, this water supply was maintained by the respective local bodies. Going with that way, even in Sri Lanka, we started providing water supply through local bodies. So according to the history, the first areas where we have provided water supply is Galle and Kandy areas. Apart from that, a systematic water supply was established in Colombo in 1886 in the colonial era. Right, those days, these British rulers constructed the water reservoir in Labugama. It's about 42 kilometers away from Colombo, to collect rainwater and bring that water to the center of the city to provide water to the people of Sri Lanka. That was the initial step taken by the government to provide pipe-borne water to the people of Sri Lanka. Since then, many local authorities involved in this exercise. From 1986 to 1975, there are many local bodies had constructed their own water supply schemes with the assistance from the government, and they provide water to their people. Generally, this water was entirely free, but in some cases they included a small fee to the assessment tax of the people. Otherwise, it was provided totally free up to 1975. But in this era, that is actually in the decade starting from 1970, there was a huge demand for PiBond water, and many international development agencies understood the value of providing good quality water for the human being, and they came with some financial assistance for providing PiBond water in the developing countries. Then at that time, government understood that the technical capacity and the know-how of the local bodies are not sufficient to construct these facilities and maintain them in a successful manner. So because of that reason, that day, government decided to establish a centralized body to undertake the water supply in Sri Lanka. That is the birth of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. It was established on 1st of January 1975 by an act of those days State Assembly. So so from that date, that is starting from 1975, now we have passed 42 years. During these 42 years, Water Board has done a lot. Water Board has expanded to a large extent. Today we are providing water to the people of Sri Lanka through about 2.2 million service connections, and our population served is somewhere around 8.5 million, about 36% of the total population of Sri Lanka.
Out of this 35% of the Sri Lankan population that you provide the PiBond water, we also know that in certain rural areas still people are dependent on their domestic water resources. And considering that, what is the kind of percentage that you cover in the whole country?
Yeah, actually, as I told at the beginning, this water supply was established by taking over the water supply schemes maintained by the respective local bodies. At that time, that is in 1975, we have taken over 66 water supply schemes. But at that time, the option was given to those local bodies either to keep their water supply schemes on their own or to hand it over to the water board. Accordingly, some of the municipalities like Colombo, Galle, Kandy, Bandaravela, Nuwara, Kurunegala, those areas, they decided to keep their water supply schemes with them. So, but later on, some of them have handed over their water supply schemes completely to the water board, like Galle and Colombo municipal area. But still, municipal areas like Kurunegala, Kandy, Bandaravela, those areas, they are maintaining their water supplies. So in Sri Lanka, PiBond water supply is provided by 3 agencies mainly. One is the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. We cover about 36% of the population, and several local bodies, including those municipal areas, they cover about 1% of the population. And in addition to that, during the last 20 years, we have constructed a large number of small scale PiBond rural water supply schemes. These schemes have been constructed with the financial assistance from the government, either from direct government funds or through the donors, and the contribution from the user community as well. The innovative thing in these schemes is these schemes are managed or maintained by the respective users. For this purpose, they have established what is called community-based organization, CBOs. Actually, at this moment, we have more than 4,000 such small schemes in the island, everywhere. And they provide about 10 to 11% of the population covered by them. So altogether, the PiBond water facility is available to about 48% of the people of Sri Lanka. The balance 52% still depend on their domestic sources like protected dug wells, tube wells, and rainwater harvesting and other domestic sources.
At present, we know that many service providers, what you said, exist in the country. However, when compared to other utility providers, customers regularly complain about the services provided by your board. Can you explain why this has happened?
Yeah, actually, this also has a little long history, because when we started water supply in 1975, so within the first 10 or 15 years, we had to undertake number of water supply schemes with very primitive technology. So their quality was not up to the standard, and the supply hours was very, very limited. So our first attention was paid to increase the supply hours. That is the quantity of water. Because at the beginning people want to get more water. That was their prime objective. So during the first 20 years, we paid our attention just to increase the quantity of water provided to our customers. Then with that, when people are getting more and more educated, and they know about the other things in the world, then they were asking about the quality of the water. Then for about another 10-15 years, we will have to spend a lot of money as well as our time to improve the quality of the water, right? So because of those two reasons, I can happily say at this moment, nowadays we are providing water only up to about 35% of the people, but most of them are getting 24 hours supply, 24 hours 7 days supply, uninterrupted water supply, and with very high water quality. Because when we are providing water, the international standard is it must be comply with the WHO, that is World Health Organization standards, right? So based on that WHO standard, we have formulated our own standard, which is known as Sri Lankan standards. So we are compelled to provide water according to these standards. I can happily say that at present, most of our water supply schemes can provide water which complies to this SLS standard. So as I told you at the beginning, from the beginning we want to improve the quantity. Then our intention was to improve the quality. So both these things we have achieved now. But that is not the end of the story. But now people want a better customer service from our service. What are the things they want to improve? They want a timely bill and a correct bill, and they want to make the payment on an easy way, and they want to update their bills and accounts with immediate updates they want. And not only that, they want that whenever they make a complaint, we pay proper attention for their complaints and attend into leaks and other things, various things. So actually, like other service, electricity, telecom, and road service and other schools, things like that, they want more better services, right? Actually, now we have paid our attention to improve this customer services area, but we know that compared with electricity and telecom, we are not up to that level now, right? Because if you think about the telecom services, before 25 or 30 years, it was quite difficult to get a telephone connection. But nowadays we know how it has become a very simple task. Even for the electricity, we know that they have been able to cover about 98% of the people of Sri Lanka. But whereas in the water sector, we have not been able to provide such a better service to the customers. But now we have paid our attention to improve our customer services. So actually, I can happily say that for all the customers, now we have fixed water meters. So all the bills are issued only on actual meter readings. There are no estimated bills, and bills are delivered on time. We don't use the postal services. Our meter readers visits each and every premises every month, and they instantly issue the water bill. And not only that, in order to make the payment, we have provided a lot of places to pay the water bills. For example, they can come and pay at our counters, or else they can go to any banks and pay their bills. Not only that, we have provided facilities at places like Kiels, Abans and Kargil Sport City and various places. They can pay their water bills. So that is one way. On the other hand, we have provided some customer care centers and call center also established in Colombo. Anybody in the island can contact this call center by dialing a small number, that is 1936. So this is a toll-free number. So by dialing this number, you can complain about your water supply, and this will be recorded and directed to the respective officers to attend to that. So likewise, we are trying our best to improve the customer service, but we have some issues also, because I will talk them later on, because compared with electricity and telephone and other services, we are charging on a very low rates from the customers. So we must understand that in order to provide the better service, we must get a good income also, right? So that is one thing. But even with limited resources, we are trying our level best to improve the customer service.
Before I touch on the charges, like you mentioned, now there is a general understanding among the people that we need to use water very carefully and to protect these natural resource sparingly. Now, even though we have seen in some of the roads that there are leaking pipes along these main roads causing severe hardships, what action has the board taken to mitigate this issue, and how does it affect your revenue?
Yeah, actually this is a very important thing in any water supply system, because wherever we are providing water supplies, we have to get water from a particular source, and then we will have to treat it and distribute it through a pipe network. So these pipes networks are generally laid along the roads. So the problem is, after sometimes these pipes may started leaking, right? This may due to several reasons. One thing is, we may have used inferior quality materials. The other things, it may be due to bad workmanships, right? Sometimes it may be due to both. But whatever the reason, because of these things, we are losing a considerable amount of water. So as this water is not generate any income for the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, we call this water as non-revenue water. This non-revenue water is a factor in any water supply schemes in any part of the world. Everywhere it is there. But so as a utility organization, as this is a loss to the board, because we have to spend a lot of money for the extraction of water and the treating of water and pumping and distribution of this water. So whenever there is a water wastage through leaks, it is a loss to the board. So in order to improve our services or increase our revenue, we should prevent this. So as I told at the beginning, the water leaking pipes is the major cause for the non-revenue water. Why this has happened? The problem is, these systems are most of our systems are very old. There are systems which are older about 50 years, 100 years or 60 years. So with these old pipeline systems, we cannot maintain sufficient pressure because of this case, right? So actually what we have to do is, we have to replace these pipes from time to time in order to provide smooth supply without water leaks. So because of this thing, actually we have estimated that countrywide we are losing about 25% of the water. That is, we say that the non-revenue water for National Water Supply and Drainage Board is about 25%. But at glance, someone may say that this is a very big amount. No, that is not, because if you compare the worldwide figures, any developing countries has a considerable amount of non-revenue water, somewhere around 20%, because Because the thing is, in technological terms, whenever you have leaks, in order to reduce these leaks, you have to invest a lot of money. So whenever you invest money, you can reduce the leaks. But there is some break-even point. Beyond that point, investment for avoiding leaks will not be more economical. So we will have to live with this thing, but we always try to reduce this amount of water, because by leaking of water through pipes, so not only we are losing our revenue, that is harmful to the environment also, because with leaking pipes the road may be damaged, with that accidents may happen. And on the other hand, sometimes if the external environment has water with more pressure, that polluted water can go into our system, causing severe problems with the quality of water. So because of these reasons, we always try to reduce the number of leaks. For that purpose, what we have done is, we have started repairing or rehabilitating almost all water supply systems. For example, in Colombo, we have started a massive program with the Asian Development Bank assistance to relay the major pipes in Colombo city to reduce these water leaks.
Now we understand that you need to do a lot of infrastructure reforms in this regard. But when it comes to the pay, consumers generally complain about high water charges. Can you explain how these charges have been established, and whether it is not possible to reduce these charges?
Yeah, a very good question. Because whenever we are trying to revise the water charges, people are coming and telling that the water board is charging very unfair manner. But we will have to think about the cost of the water supply. Generally, we charge only for the operation and maintenance cost of the water supplies, because not only in Sri Lanka, in every part of the world, the government consider that investment for water is a very basic human need. There are a lot of economic benefits behind that. So because of that thing, many governments, even in well-developed countries, they provide the necessary capital funds for the water supply schemes as a grant. So but at the same time, they want to cover the operation and maintenance cost from the customers. Even in Sri Lanka, we adopt the same policy. In here also, government provides almost all capital funds either through their own budgets or with foreign assistance. We have to pay only a very small amount of these loans back to the government. But government expects water board to run as a financial viable organization. So because of that reason, we will have to cover our operation and maintenance cost. So because of that reason, we have to charge the customers on a reasonable manner. But I can tell you, at present, our charges are based on various factors. At present, our production cost is about 48 rupees per hour. 48 rupees per 1 meter cube. 1 meter cube means 1000 liters. But when we are providing water to the customers, we have a increasing slab system. But for the 15 units, generally one family requires only 15 meter cubes per month for a family of 5 persons. So these 15 units we provide at about 310 rupees. So based on that figure, that the average revenue we are getting from a domestic customer is only 20 rupees per meter cube. Just think about that. We produce this water at 48 rupees per meter cube, while we have to provide this to the local customers at 20 rupees. So we are running this at really a loss. So what I want to tell you is that we are not charging heavy amount, right? We are charging a very reasonable amount. And I appeal all the customers just to compare their electricity bill, telephone bills and other utility bills with the water bills. We are charging a very, very minimal amount, and we are providing a very valuable service at a very lesser cost.
Now in the modern world, we know that there is a lot of discussion take place with regard to privatization of utility services sector controlled by the public or the government sector. How do you think about this privatization or the private sector participation in drinking water supply in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, actually, when we are talking about privatization, even in now, we have got the assistance from the private sector in various spaces of the water supply field. For example, even at the beginning, for the planning and design activities, we use consultants. Right, so this is private sector participation, and almost all major construction are carried out through the private sector contractors. And even during the operation and maintenance, we get our materials through private suppliers and other services as well. But generally, when we are talking about the privatization, we usually mean the total privatization, right? But in many parts of the world, this total privatization of water supply has not happened, because this is considered as a service which must be maintained either by government or with full government involvement. So because of that reason, we are also not thinking about the privatization of the water service, but we are open to get the private sector assistance to a large extent in order to improve our service. We know that generally in private sector productivity is high. We want to get that qualities into our service. And apart from that, nowadays we are facing a problem about the capital funds required for the future developments of the water supply. So now we are thinking about the public-private partnerships projects also in future water supply developments.
Taking all these into consideration, what future plans that the water board has in increasing the demand for PiBond's water supply?
Yeah, actually, at present, as I explained earlier, about 48% of the people of Sri Lanka have access to PiBond water. Within next 3 to 4 years, we want to increase this coverage up to about 60%. For that purpose, we have already started a large number of projects with local and foreign assistance. For example, almost all major cities are now being provided with water. For example, places like Jaffna, Trinco, and Chilau, Putlam, all those areas, we have started new projects in order to increase the PiBond water in those areas. So with that initiative, we think that by 2020 or 21, we will be able to cover about 60% of the people of Sri Lanka. While that portion of people are provided with PiBond water, we are assisting, or we are supporting the other communities also to protect their dug wells and their rural water supply schemes in order to sustain those things.
So finally, let me ask, what is your message to the consumers and customers of the water board, and in general to the people of Sri Lanka?
Yeah, generally for the customers, my message is to use water as much as less, because we are producing this water at a high cost and we are providing at a low rate. So whenever you are wasting water, we will be compelled to more and more investment to provide water to other people. So by using less amount of water, you will be getting a low water bill, as well as you will be helping the nation to give PiBond water to some other people. And on the other hand, to the general public, my message is these days we are facing a critical problem with the water sources, because most of the water sources are being highly polluted, and due to these climatic changes, we are facing some salinity intrusion and lot of floods and other things also. So because of that thing, what we are asking for the public is to protect the catchment areas, not to pollute the water, so that we will be able to provide this service to the majority of people in Sri Lanka with a lesser investment.
In today's Coffee with Dan, I had Mr. Gerard Fernando. He's a chartered engineer by profession with a BSc in engineering from the University of Moratuwa, and he also holds master's degrees and other various qualifications to serve in his present capacity as the additional general manager of corporate services of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, or what we commonly call the Water Board of Sri Lanka. Mr. Gerard Fernando accounts for over 35 years of experience in the water sector, and he has served in various regions in many capacities prior to promoting to the present designation. Today we were discussing about national water supply in Sri Lanka. So now we come to the end of today's Coffee with Dan. I would like to thank Mr. Gerard Fernando for being here and for giving his valuable thoughts and information about our main topic, national water supply in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Mr. Gerard, for being here. And I will meet you tomorrow, my dear listeners, with another interesting topic, important guest.